All right, today we're diving into a source that makes some truly explosive claims. It connects a tragedy on the cricket pitch to the highest levels of global politics. So let's follow the threads of this really complex web and see exactly where they lead.
And the source doesn't pull any punches. It opens with this incredibly stark and direct accusation. I mean, this single sentence right here, it's the catalyst for the entire story we're about to explore, and it sets the stage for a narrative that goes far, far beyond the world of sports.
So, let's break down the core allegation that's really at the heart of this whole controversy.
Okay, so the central claim is a deliberate, targeted airstrike by Pakistan. According to the source, this was absolutely no accident. The allegation is that these cricketers were the intended targets, and they were killed while they were just returning home from a friendly match. And this is what really highlights the human cost behind the headlines. The source actually names the three young men, Kabir, Sigbatola, and Haroon. It argues that because they were athletes representing their nation, their deaths are what ignited this absolute firestorm that followed.
Now, as you can imagine, this alleged attack didn't stay a quiet regional conflict for long. It had immediate and very, very public consequences in the international sports world.
The first, most direct consequence was this: the cancellation of a planned trilateral cricket series. The Afghanistan Cricket Board, or ACB, they took swift, decisive action. They just pulled right out of the tournament that was supposed to include both Pakistan and Sri Lanka.
This quote from Rashid Khan, who was one of Afghanistan's most famous sports figures, it just perfectly captures the raw emotion and the outrage. His words carried immense weight. He framed the cancellation not as some political move, but as a moral necessity in the face of what he called a barbaric and cowardly act.
And this is where the source starts to broaden the lens. It argues this whole incident didn't just happen in a vacuum. It asks a much bigger question. What kind of geopolitical climate would embolden an action like this? So, the source starts to connect the dots, all the way from this regional strike to the very top of the world's power structure.
The source presents a really specific chain of logic here, almost like cause and effect. It starts with Pakistan's leadership publicly praising Donald Trump, which the source frames as a totally strategic move. Then, you have Trump's own claims that he personally stopped a war between India and Pakistan. The conclusion the source draws from all this? That this perceived backing from a global superpower is what emboldens Pakistan to act more aggressively in the region.
And to build on its case, the source highlights another one of Trump's claims, that he personally convinced India's Prime Minister Modi to stop buying Russian oil. This is a claim, by the way, that has no official record. It's presented as just another example of this external influence being asserted on the region's affairs.
So then the source analyzes India's pretty quiet response to Trump's claim. It suggests this soft public reaction wasn't a sign of weakness at all, but actually a calculated move in the super intricate dance of international diplomacy, where, sometimes silence can be just as powerful as words.
All of this geopolitical maneuvering leads the source to its final, and maybe its most fundamental argument. It moves beyond these specific events to explore the underlying force that it believes is really at play here, the very nature of national loyalty in our modern world.
The core idea here is a comparison between two really different views of what national loyalty is. Is your primary allegiance to the country on your passport, or do deeper ethnic or religious identities come first, no matter where you live? The source argues that this question is absolutely central to understanding these global conflicts.
So, to illustrate that first model, where identity goes beyond borders, the source presents what it calls the Israeli model. It uses some really high-profile examples to make its case. It points to Jared Kushner, claiming that even as a U.S. advisor, his work on the Abraham Accords prioritized Israeli interests. It mentions Ivanka Trump's conversion to Judaism, which was reportedly met with applause in Israel's parliament. And finally, it cites billionaire Miriam Adelson, whose refusal to publicly choose between America and Israel is presented as proof of where her ultimate loyalty lies.
This slide really puts those two visions of national loyalty side by side. On one hand, the source describes this model of an unwavering national identity that can influence policy from all the way across the globe. But on the other, it presents a critique from within India, quoting Zoho founder Sridhar Vembu, who argues that the country's own hyper-educated elite have lost that very sense of foundational allegiance. It's a pretty powerful and provocative contrast, for sure.
So, we started with a tragic allegation on a sports field, and the source has taken us on this wild journey through geopolitics and power plays, all the way to a fundamental question of identity.
It leaves us with this final thought to chew on. In a world as connected as ours, what really defines true allegiance to a nation anymore?